Hi, this is Isabel. Thanks for joining today during your lunch break. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for registering. So basically today the topic is how to look for work in Switzerland, and I'm going to put the focus on networking. I've created already events for 2017, so you're welcome to check out my events for 2017 first quarter. You will see other topics. If you have topics that you would like me to cover in the future, feel free to send me an email or text me and let me know what topics you'd like me to talk about. This is your time with me, so the idea is really to serve you with information about the Swiss market. So basically what I want to cover today is networking strategies to look for a job. And I will do that in 3 ways. I will explain how you will develop your network, how to grow your skills, and how to serve people with information. So I'm trying to see, I will answer questions in between the different topics, but if you have something that's really important and you want to ask it, I'll try to go back and forth. Still getting used to the Facebook Live, but it's quite exciting. So what I want to do is basically, I actually want to make a big a change in this presentation. Is what, when you saw networking strategies, you probably think, oh great, I'm going to learn big strategies on how to go about building a network. Actually, what I want to announce is that there is no such thing as a strategy. Networking is basically human beings, so it's you and me, and people connect or they don't, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's the big one. People think there's a mysterious secret that they should know, that all of a sudden they will be able to connect with all the influencers. I personally don't believe in it. I think it's a human thing. Some people you will have immediate affinities with, and others you won't, and it's just the way it is. So I try to build my presentation around that, around my belief that there is no such thing as a strategy, but I want to give you tips to at least increase your chances of connecting with the right people for you. So the first thing I want to talk about in developing a network is that there is a protocol, in my view. So I see too many people out there in Switzerland, when they go to events, they're not prepared. So if you want to give a professional persona, meaning that people respect you and admire you, you need to put in the time and effort to present well. So that means you need to be have a minimum preparation in how you dress, how you speak, so you can prepare something at home maybe if you're still confused in your career. I have a tip I give in my blog about the dilemma when you're going to events. You can find which one works for you, but basically just going there as someone who's interested in getting information. Just saying you're new to Geneva and you just want to learn. You want to learn what companies are out there, what are the big businesses out there, and you don't necessarily need to position yourself with a specific job. So there's different ways you can go about it. But basically just have an idea a little bit about what you're going to do there so that you present yourself well. The other thing is about the look. I also see people that go to events, and even sometimes when I was doing in-person workshops, people would come in t-shirts and jeans. I mean, if you're going to a drinks workshop, then it's okay. If you want people to consider you as a resource, professional, then you need to dress with what you want to represent. So if you're out there to get a job, you want people to remember you as someone that looks the part, if you see what I mean. So there's a lot of image consultants out there, so I don't want to get too much into the image thing, but just know that your image is important, and you see it also more and more online in your profile. People go and find professional photographers to do their photos. It's becoming more and more important. Hello, hello Lillian. Nice to have you online. So basically, that's the thing. You need to prepare yourself, dress well, and of course follow a protocol, which is to be a nice person. So when you meet people, just remember to give them your card. So I insist on the card because some people will say, well, I don't know which card to create because I don't really have a job yet. I don't know what I want to do. Just a simple card with your name and your details is enough, so that people can connect and maybe add you later on LinkedIn or another social media. The idea is to leave a trace. Remember, it's also part of your branding. So if you don't leave a trace, people don't remember who you are. If you go to an event where there's 100 people, chances are, you're just one of the others and you won't be remembered. But if you leave a nice card, then people will say, oh yeah, that's the person with the good card. So remember to invest in a quality card, in a quality photo for your profile as well online. So when people connect, they see also that the photo is good quality. So it's all about building really something that makes sense so that you increase your chances of connecting with influencers. So that's the basics for me. If you do this right, then you are in the right track. But going out there to connect to the high profile people is going to be difficult if you haven't even done that for yourself, to take the time to at least get your stuff together. So that's the important part in my view. So that's the protocol of building, the basics of building a network, is going out there prepared and going out there where you have worked a little bit on your profile. The second thing that's going to be important is to invest time in your networking. Unfortunately, when people come to me, it's already been 6 months and they wasted a lot of time on their resume and cover letter, going around in circles, applying online to the same job boards where everyone is going. And you get to a space where you've applied, but you get no results. And basically, you're a little bit demotivated, a bit frustrated as well. So it's going to be very important to start really from the beginning. So if you lose your job on Monday, just make sure that you're connecting your network as soon as Tuesday. So even if you say, okay, I want to take some time off, I have a lot of people who have this issue, specific issue, where they wanted to take time off, and they realize after 6 months or a year, now they're forgotten. Their network has completely been forgotten them. So make sure that you connect with people early on, and even if you're not available, people know you're out there and they will contact you still. So you keep yourself basically around in the networking circles, even though you're not physically present. So that's why it's important. It's work in progress, because building a network will take time. So let's say now if you're starting from scratch, let's say that you have absolutely no network or very little, you want to start as soon as possible. If you're in a job right now, it doesn't matter, because that's actually when you have the best chances of building your network, is when you do have a job. Because as soon as you leave the company, it's harder to go and talk to people and be seen. So make sure you're active on day one. The other thing you need to do is make sure that you create a busy networking portion of your job search. So if you have your agenda now, I want to see appointments, I want to see events, and that's very hard. And I've said this before, especially if you're not used to it. Of course, the more commercial profiles out there have an easy time with that, or easier time. But if you're not used to it, start as soon as possible, and you will see it will get better with time. You will get more comfortable, and you will get probably much better network afterwards. So make sure you book yourself. Make sure, and that's the basics again, make sure you look at what you have already. People already aim for big people, big influencers. Look at who you have in your network. Look at your close friends, people that trust you and you trust them. They will be your first resource. So, and they want to help you probably, but sometimes people have a bit of non-comfort zone around being unemployed. It's a little bit like, I've been this person who had a great job for many years, and now what is my wife gonna say? What are my kids gonna say? So you have to get to the point where you feel comfortable with yourself and you're connecting with people that are close to you. If they're your close friends, usually they'll want to help. They'll want to give you at least a resource, information. So don't be afraid to reach out to them, and they'll probably need you at some point as well. So I think now we have to look at work a little bit differently. It used to be where people really build their identity around their job, and it was a bad thing if you didn't have a job. I think now it's changing. People want more freedom, they want to have time off. So being in a space where you don't have a job is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means maybe that you haven't figured out what you like, maybe you want to make a change. But the bad mark is actually now not so much the case. So you need to reconcile with that and now say, okay, I'm going to meet my close friends or reach out to them and start there, because that's the comfort zone. And then when you get a little bit more comfortable, you can start also expanding to the unknown horizons, meaning going to events where you don't know anybody. And that's a little bit scary at the beginning, but again, people are human beings, so, and they're like you. They're also maybe looking for a job or not so self-assured. So in the end, there's nothing to be worried about. I do give a lot of resources in my page about networking events. I don't want you to discriminate against, okay, this event is not going to be so interesting because no big head honchos are going to be there. You never know who's going to be there or not. So I would just go to events based on personal interests. So if you're someone that's a fan of books or a fan of sports or whatever is your thing, just start going there, because you'll be more dynamic to go to things that you really enjoy. And then probably these people are in the same circles as well, and you might meet them. There's a lot of training right now going on LinkedIn, on social media, how to connect with influencers. I personally think it's going to be a little bit difficult, and I see a lot of my clients a bit frustrated because they try to connect with influencers or recruiters, in big companies. The reality is that people don't really respond to you, and that's not something I want to get into right now, because again, it's another story. But the thing is, if people don't know you, technically they don't reply. So it's really much a market where, what can you bring me? And people have a little bit this idea already that they want to get something, and if they don't see the interest immediately, they probably won't answer, especially if you're looking and they can sense that from miles away. So the way to go about that is really to start small, is go to events where you're comfortable, connect with people in person, and then you will follow up online. I think is easier, because if you connect online out of the blue, it's going to be harder to get the reply. When you're in person, unless you're extremely rude or not pleasant, people will be more inclined to engage with you. But if you're online, it's a bit strange. It's like you get an email online from someone you don't know, and depending on how the email is built, people might sense that they're threatened, or they're going to be asked for something that they don't want to do. So they're a bit worried about it. So don't take it personally if people don't reply. I think that's my message to you today. If people don't reply, that just means they don't see their interest, and they're just not interested at this stage. But maybe if you were to meet them in an event in Geneva, they would be a very different person. And also what I've noticed is that once people are in a job, they also forget what it's like. So they get into their job mode and their problems at work, and they're not so much into the giving mode. They don't remember what it's like to be out on the other side of the fence and to need a job. So, and even people who were unemployed sometimes become this person again when they forget, and they forget about the gratitude thing. But that's not also something I want to get into. I think you have to do what you feel comfortable with, just because the other ones aren't doing it. I personally accept everybody in my networks online, except for my private Facebook page, which is something really for my close friends. But the other media where I'm on, I accept everybody, because I want to share my mission also with everybody. And of course, it's my job to help people find their dream job or their dream activity. And I want, to help you also find the connections with people that can help you around your close circles and start that way. So that's how I teach people to network. I don't worry so much about the influential circles type of thing. So that's, again, for how to build the network. I get into that more one-on-one when I work with my clients, so that it's something that really, your networking has to resemble you. It has to be you. How you connect. If you're in marketing, obviously, you're not going to be using the same kind of communication as someone in finance. You're not targeting the same people or the same jobs. Hi, Mathilde. So I get a question from Mathilde. Hello, thanks for your nice advice. Thank you. I have a question. When you go to such a networking event, after presenting yourself and getting into a small talk, should you mention directly you're looking for a job? Oh, no, not right away. You want to build trust first before you ask anything. I mean, people will definitely not feel comfortable if you're saying you're looking for work. So the way you would approach is basically, I would say, position yourself as someone who is listening. You want to learn about the person. You want to see where they're coming from. And then later on, maybe as you get to know the person, you would see how they could help you. But at the beginning, it's just to get to know somebody. Where do they work? What are their passions? Make sure that at the end you get their card. And then maybe later on LinkedIn, you can exchange a bit more. The way you can prepare this is that when you meet the person, I would not get into the job search first. I would just say, it was nice to meet you. Thanks for the card. May I contact you later on LinkedIn? Maybe we can discuss on the phone. I have a few more questions for you. And again, don't mention the job search thing. It's about getting information and getting information on the market. You want to position yourself as someone who's, I don't know if you're new to Switzerland or if you already work here, but if you're new to Switzerland, you can easily say that you're learning. You just want to know what companies are out there. You want to get the expertise of the person. That's a word I put in my emails. I tell people to put in their emails People always like, you know, when they're actually approached as a specialist in a market, not so much as someone who can give you something immediately. But it's just to build the trust, build the contact, make sure you leave a nice impression and that people feel comfortable with you. And then maybe they will be more inclined to help you. But again, no one is going to help you off the bat unless they're built like that. But it's not many people who are in that gratitude mode. Most people are out there, you know, what can I get? You know, everyone is more or less like that now. So it's not so much about, you know, the exchange is not necessarily there immediately. You have to build it a little bit. So I hope I answered the question from Mathilde. Yeah, but it's really, it's difficult in networking because it's really finding the right balance between saying enough information but not too much, where you build the trust and you're not so much into, you're not getting too aggressive. Because I find sometimes with job seekers, and actually that's the perfect transition to my next part I was going to cover, about how you introduce yourself in networking online in groups. Because what's happening is that in groups, sometimes people try to vent a little bit their frustration. Definitely networking events, whether it's online, offline, don't vent online. If you have a problem about a topic, talk to your mom, talk to someone who's really close to you, but don't vent online. That's really bad. Recruiters will see it and they won't be very happy to see that you're criticizing the fact. I just saw recently people criticize the fact that recruiters take a long time to reply, that they don't get necessarily interviews, that it takes forever. That's not the way to position yourself with the bright light. Those are things you can't control. All you can control is what you do and what you bring to the world. So focus on that. What can I do to build value, you know, in this space where I am right now? Not so much about whether people reply or not. That's not it's not something you can do. Okay, I get a reply from Mathilde. So thanks. It's more into the long run we have to think. Yeah, and it's hard because I know and I completely understand that people need a job now. They don't need a job in a year. So that's why I insist so much about networking, especially if you're working right now. You're going to avoid being in that space where you will need it when you need it the most. So, you know, it's a little bit like, it's planning basically. It's saying in the event that I should lose my job. And in Switzerland, if you have some Swiss friends, probably it's great because the Swiss in their culture tend to be very much the type that think about preparation and security. So you need to think a little bit like that as well, security-wise. Okay, if I were to lose my job, let's say, what could I do right now to already prepare myself? So if you have a job right now, just say, okay, now I'm going to try to connect maybe at lunch a little bit more with people. I'm going to try to go out a little bit to meet some fresh faces and see if I can get to understand a little bit more. So don't wait. Do it immediately if you're working. And if you're not working, then the emergency is actually increased. But you can't show that to people. You can't show that it's an emergency for you because then, you know, your value will go down a little bit. And it's unfortunate, but it's a fact. And I talk to recruiters almost every day and they tell me between someone who's not working and someone who's working, we will probably be more interested in the person who's working. People tend to also identify talents in different categories, in different sectors. So the people that are really good in their business in watchmaking, they're known out there, they're identified. Same thing with biotech or wherever. So the people are identified and recruiters chase them. They know where they're at, they want them for their company because they know they've got the knowledge. So so the people that are really well profiled and that just work in the different categories of functions, they're identified already. So if you're coming to a country where you're new, you don't have this background, you don't have this history, you're going to have to do a lot of work around building this trust and building this history for you so that people feel more comfortable, because a recruiter will always go with what's the least risk option, which is someone that's been in Switzerland for a while, who understands the local market, who's got a network. So all these things are pluses you're also bringing to the job. So that leads me also to the part around developing your skills. Definitely learn languages. I mean, in Switzerland, that's the thing. There's different languages, French, English, German, and English for the international companies. So make sure that you learn them. it's not so hard now to learn a language. You have a lot of teachers out there, a lot of methods. You just have to do it. I would say don't think about it, just do it. If you want to have a career in Switzerland, it's going to be important. And it's a new thing for people who come from the US or UK, where they could get by very well with one language. When you come to Switzerland, you have to accept that it's a different culture. There's different ways that people do things, and there's also languages are extremely important. I was just talking to a recruiter who tells me, look, out of all the profiles, if they have the languages, they will find a job. So, and that's what's missing usually, even with the Swiss themselves. Maybe they speak German, but they don't speak French, or the other way around. So the more languages you speak, the better off you are. So that's going to be an easy skill that you can get rather than just to go back to learn something completely new to university. You can easily take a language course and just master this language fairly quickly. Of course, it takes a little bit of time and practice, but you can just put it in your agenda to just master this thing. And it's going to be so much easier for you to find a job and to network as well. So those are things that you can do. So part of the language thing is really important, but also I think you can look at networking also as a skills developer, because you will learn to introduce yourself, you will be more confident, and those are skills that you also need in the workplace. So when you get hired, now employees are asked to run meetings, to lead teams, to have an impact in the company, to sell their ideas. So all these things you need to learn how to do. So in networking, you do those things basically. You are leading, you're leading yourself, you're engaging with people, so you're leading teams as well. And you can do this in a very informal way right now, thanks to the internet. I mean, before there was this model of hierarchical model, and now with the internet, people work very differently. And that's the beauty of it, is that now you don't need to necessarily start with a lot of assets. You can just easily connect with people and engage with them, get their buy-in into your ideas. So it's it's going to be quite interesting also for your future employer to actually come to the table and say, you know, I have a network, I can present myself very well, I can build trust, etc. These are going to be so much more important than the typical, yeah, I have a master's degree from this school, you know, that I've received in 2000. Well, we're in 2016 now. You know, it's really now the soft skills is really what employers are looking for. So that's something you need to put in your agenda if you're not doing it right now. What I wanted to say in this Facebook Live as well is that I built online career planning in my website. It's basically aimed to cover the issue that most expats have, or what I would call international employees, which is there's a cultural aspect of how do I get myself settled in a country. There's the language issues and basically the resources in general when you start from scratch. So I have a guide basically that I've built, which is included in my package, where you learn how to craft your project and ask yourself the right questions, which is something you absolutely need to do if you want to be credible. If you're confused in your head, how do you want people to buy into your project? You know, it's a little bit, you have to think a little bit like an entrepreneur. This is why I call my guide, my book, I Am My Own Project Manager, because you're selling a project. The project is your job search. So if you're confused, if you're not clear, then people won't buy into you. They won't invest in you, just as if you were an entrepreneur. You know, they won't say no. But if you're coming, you're clear, you know exactly what you want, you're sharp, then people will react to that. They will say, wow, this person knows what she's talking about. I want her on my team. A little bit like The Voice. So anyway, that's how it works, especially now for the job search. So I would say don't spend so much time on the job boards, because these are for, I would say, students mostly. They, you know, looking for an internship or first job or somewhat junior profiles. But if you're someone who's been out there and have a couple of years experience, it's not going to be that relevant. I would say you would be more successful to go out there and connect with the right people. So in my Career Online Pack, I work on that. I work on helping people finding the resources fast so that they can be immediately efficient in their job search, and I help them with contacts. I have a network mostly in human resources. This is definitely what you need, obviously. So I'm trying to connect, you know, my contacts who also need resources and talents, and people who have those talents but just haven't worked on their project necessarily. And once you're ready, I put the two in contact. And I have people who have successfully found a job. I have testimonials on my website and on my YouTube channel. This is going to be also depending, you have to put in a lot of energy as well. So that's how it works. You have to put in the effort of looking and finding the resources. But basically this online pack is out there for you. We can talk offline if you want. I can present a little bit more about what I do and how I do it and what I could do it for you as an individual. So this way you can get out of the circle of applying and not getting answers. Oh, new question from Mathilde. Question about LinkedIn. What to do if you see you have second level connections within a company where there is currently a job opening of interest? What do you say to your common contacts, or do these? Second level connections. I think the thing is with LinkedIn is that if you don't have the emails options, so they restrict with emails. So sometimes if you have second level connections, you can't contact them. What you can do is send an email to the person that you can reach in your network and just ask them if they can connect you. So it's an introductory type of email. So the person can say, look, you know, here is Isabel, here is Mathilde, you know, you two, you can talk. So it's really a person, an introductory person. But again, I have to see if you're disturbed with the emails, because sometimes you can't. You click and it says you won't be able to do it. And again, my experience doing these, where I've done introductions for people, I'm happy to do it. It hasn't worked because again, it's online. People are a bit more, you know, what is she looking for? That type of thing. So we go back to how productive can you be online? I would put that more as a secondary option. I have one of my clients today who asked me about putting her in contact with someone, and of course, you know, it's easy for me because I have the email of the person. But if it's going to be via LinkedIn directly, sometimes with the emails, it's a bit confusing how you can go about that. And on LinkedIn itself, on the tool itself, sometimes people don't reply either. So you can try. I think it's worth trying to have someone introduce you. It doesn't hurt, you know, at least it's a connection. But again, I wouldn't put so much energy. I think that would be more of the secondary things I do. And that's actually how I do it now, how I run my business with LinkedIn, is that I don't put so much energy on actually chasing too much the contacts, because then I know how people react to that, which is usually negative. I work more about value I put in terms of information for the contacts that I know is geared to them, hoping that then they will see and then they will be a bit more open to have a communication with me. And usually it works. When people are not necessarily chased, they react much better. Then they feel a bit like less pressure and they're more inclined, because I will post sometimes messages where I say I need help in these kinds of things, which is the case right now for a project. And usually people are inclined to help you if they see that it's for good purposes. So you have to go about it. Again, I would have to look at your profile, what you could use in your profile to bring value. Everyone has something they can bring so that these people can reply to you. So it's doing it a little bit differently so that it's not so direct. And I know people go the direct way, but sometimes it's, again, connecting with influencers or with people that are in big companies. They tend to not reply so much. So we have to find I call that backdoor strategies to get to that end goal. Okay, so that was the question from Mathilde. So that brings me again, perfect transition to the third part about networking with success, which is serving people with information. So I look at it as opposed to looking for, but serving. And this is why in all my conferences and my work, I use the term, I am my own project manager. You're welcome, Mathilde. I am my own project manager because you're leading the project, which is your career. And serving people with information is going to bring you so much more than chasing people with information, which is a little bit different. So everyone has something that they're good at. You know, you've worked in a job before, even if it was abroad, you have knowledge, but sometimes you can't see it because you haven't thought about it, or it's just not clear to you immediately. But everyone has something that they're bringing, a skill. And you just have to basically pin into that skill and say, okay, what can I do with this skill that brings value to people in Switzerland right now where I'm based? And that usually will work for you much better. But it's, again, it takes time to understand what this skill is, what you can do. Not everyone can go and write blog articles, for example, if it's not your skill, or can start a group and animate it, or so you just have to see what works for you and how you bring value at your own level. But I see people taking the leadership in that a little bit more, where I met a few people yesterday that are starting their own activity. They say, look, there's no market for me in Switzerland, based on my background, based on what I know how to do. So I'm just going to start my own activity. And this is also something I include why I help solopreneurs, because I really think it is a solution. It is one of the solutions if you don't have a lot of multinationals where you work, which is the case unless you live in the city center of Geneva or in Zurich. There's many places in Switzerland where there's not a huge potential to find a job in a big company. It's mostly either small companies, and then you need to speak the local language perfectly, and even to understand how the locals work, which is another thing again. So your chances are very slim, and that's a reality. So starting your own activity is a way to say, there's nothing out there that really fits me, so I'm going to create my own thing and bring my own value that way. And actually, I met this person yesterday who was quite successful with her own designs, and she basically found her tribe, meaning people who like her stuff, and she's selling to these people, and it's actually working for her. So I think that's what you have to do. You have to think about what is it that you can bring, that you can develop easily, because you don't want to spend years thinking about your project, and that you can find people that would be interested. And there's always something that's very unique that you can bring. So I just want to put that on the table. The job search is one thing. Depending on your profile, you may be stuck at some point because of lack of opportunities on the market. So building your own activity could be also a resource. So basically, yeah, think about what you can do. What are your skills? What could you bring easily, and cut through the chase a little bit, so that you're not in this unemployment thing forever. And then the longer you wait, the worse it gets, because then you lose your market potential. Digital world is definitely also a resource. So you have so much information about the market, about what companies are hiring. What I find is that people are not necessarily open to what's going on, meaning that sometimes you're in your own life, you're talking always with the same people, you're in the same spheres. So reading the press, and that's why I say you need to learn the local language, because there's so much information just in newspapers, in magazines. You will know which companies are hiring, which ones are laying off, if there's changes happening. You want to be knowledgeable about this stuff. You want to be an informed employee. So I think there's something about information that people need to kind of get up to speed and understand what the information is, and use it appropriately. So that's going to be important. Any other questions besides Mathilde? I just want to be available for your questions. And don't worry if you think about a question later, this is going to be available for replay. And I will check Facebook and reply to your questions later if that is the case, because I know some people couldn't make it today. So what I want to do is basically I want to give you action points, so that after these Facebook Live, and I will do this every month, after this Facebook Live, you're left with something concrete to do from me. So the first thing is to book your agenda. Make sure that you go and find appropriate events. You can start with places like meetup.com or even Bright, where you see what's happening a little bit. I have a blog post I posted specifically on this Facebook event, where you can find some of the links about where to find interesting events to go out in Geneva, and I believe in Switzerland as well. It's a little bit wider. You can look by city in Meetup and even Bright. So find something in your local area where you can go out and meet people and book yourself up. That's going to be so much more efficient than the job boards, trust me. So number one action point, book yourself up. Number two, make sure that you contact at least 2 people in your current network. So whether they're your close friends or people maybe you haven't told that you're looking, maybe people from way back when, maybe you have some old friends and maybe they're not even in Switzerland, but they may know something that you don't. So I know if I have people contact me from abroad about something, maybe even if I'm not local, I think of some resources for them. So it's really about thinking outside of the box, which tends to be quite used, but I like this term. Really, that's what it's about. It's you have an issue, what is the potential solution? And there's always solutions. So think about 2 people you can contact immediately that you haven't talked to in a while, or that, yeah, maybe it's from even school, but just make that as a priority. And then, you do that regularly. You keep increasing the objectives. So I'm just giving you some starter objectives, but then you can increase the speed a little bit. So book your agenda, contact at least 2 people in your current network that you have, and do one thing that scares you every day. That's the challenge part. So if, let's say, it is contacting one person, just do it, and see what happens. Or if it's, well, I've been wanting to start this course, but I've been pushing it away, I'm a bit worried, etc., just sign up for it today. So that's what's going to bring you also results, is that you start doing things that you weren't doing before. If you do the same things, obviously nothing happens, right? So if you've been posting on job boards forever and nothing happens, if you keep doing it tomorrow, probably nothing happens. So at some point you have to change a little bit and say, okay, this is not working, so let's do it differently. So make sure that you go and do something that's a little bit stretchy for you, and then you will see probably you get some result. So these are my 3 tips for you for this Facebook Live. I don't see any more questions, so if it's the case, I will let you go and eat your lunch if you haven't done so yet. And you're welcome to contact me also offline. I'd be happy to chat with you. So again, thank you, and there will be the next Facebook Live in January, 2nd week of January, because early January usually people are not around. So sign up for it now, and I will talk to you then. Thanks. Bye.